Hello, my friend, and welcome to Security and Secure, hosted by me, Johnny Seifert. This is the Celebrity Mental Health podcast, or I say it's okay to not be okay. And if you have the same match as me, whether you're watching or listening, leave a 5-star rating and a review, and let's keep spreading the word. It's okay to not be okay, and that subscribe button is going to help you do that. Now, let me tell you about my guest today. My guest today, well, you'll be able to see him at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival across the summer in his show Lost, and he's on his new tour, Life Advice That Won't Change Your Life Around the UK. And he's someone who's really interesting because when we look at mental health, there's always kind of a seriousness to it. And when we have these conversations, it's always quite down. And what he does is looks at the flip side of it and goes, well, look, we can laugh at it at the expense of just trying to find that little bit of light when everything seems so dark. So I'm really interested in how he's going to take today's conversation as we go a little bit deeper than he does on his amazing social media accounts. I'm delighted to welcome to Security. It's the king of sketches. It's the comedian. It's Joe McTernan. Hello, Joe.
Hi, mate. How are you?
I'm all right. How
I,
are you doing?
I feel much better that you've just described me as the king of sketches. That has gave me such an ego boost
Good.
to start this off.
Because what you do, my friend, is you escape. And what we're going to do today in today's episode is we're going to get rid of that escapism and we're going to focus on you. So rather than being the funny Joe that we all know and love, let's look at you and let's dig deep because you've got such an incredible fan base who are so loyal to you, but they only see the good side. And I think it's very easy sometimes to only look at the good side and forget about the bad side and look at actually the meanings behind it. And I think if we start with a joke that you gave, I'm not going to tell the joke. It's about beds. Can you tell me the joke and then we're going to analyze it because you'll do a much better delivery than I will.
I saw a motivational quote which tells you to make your bed every morning as it accomplishes the first task of the day. I'll be honest, it's costing me a fortune in timber.
Great joke.
Ew.
It's got a
Thank you.
beginning, middle, and end. It's, if you're into mental health, Jay Shetty spoke about it. Vinnie Jones was actually the first person that I heard speak about this. And I was like, oh, and it was because
Really?
his wife, Tanya, had passed away. And he said, look, if I make my bed, then at least I've done something, at least I've achieved something. And it always stuck with me. And I started making my bed from that day on. And I actually went out the following day after hearing Vinnie Jones talk about that and bought 6 pillows so that I could put the show cushions on my bed. Because it does give you a task. And yes, there's some lightness in there. I mean, it's cost me a fortune in timber and everything like that. But let's just think about that. Let's just think about, Joe, what it's like for you to wake up every day. And look, we know you're not always going to be in darkness, but when we look from a mental health perspective at that idea of doing a task and actually just having a reason to get up in the morning, what's your experiences been like when you haven't wanted to get up?
At my worst times, like I can sometimes not get up, basically. I mean, I think the worst period in my life, which lasted for about a year and a half to 2 years, was that I just wouldn't get out of bed until sort of 5, 6 at night. And the only reason I would get out of bed literally was just because my ex-girlfriend at the time would be coming home from work. And I used to do this really weird thing where I would then pretend to her that I hadn't been doing that. So I could even I had this amazing superpower that I could get up and within 40 minutes, clean the flat, make the bed, make it like get dressed, have a shower and do it in such a small amount of time, but just to make it seem like I hadn't been doing that all day, which is really strange because I don't know why that was the motivation to actually get up. I think I was always a little bit more concerned of what other people knowing that I was depressed sort of thing. So yeah, that would be the worst times. Now it's still sometimes hard, like, there's certain worst days, but that joke weirdly did come from a genuine trying of doing that every morning. And it's not even so much the making the bed thing. I sort of try and do this thing now where if I am having a really hard day, literally just even brushing your teeth or just literally getting out of your bed to go to the toilet and then just say, that's all I'm going to do. That's the first step. It's just because you need to go to the toilet. Do that. And then if you can do your teeth, then that's great. But it's that kind of taking like steps and making them so insignificantly small to someone normal. I think when you do suffer from really bad depression, those little things can seem like mountains to climb sometimes. So rather than having every single thing that you have to do, I sort of have to list everything now. And I list things specifically like that every day. So it's not big tasks like, oh, I have to go out and buy this thing or whatever. It's time. I do little, go for a shower as one of my notes. Brush my teeth is another one of my notes. And I tick them off as I go in the morning, which some people might find ridiculous, but it genuinely helps me and makes me feel like some accomplishment's been done. which might sound a little bit sad to some people, but it's kind of more help with me than anything else to be like that now. So I list everything now that I need to do. Every
Well,
single
also,
thing.
like you say, if you think about it, someone who does a 9 to 5 and they create lists, it's the same list as you're doing. It's just in a different way. You're still looking to have a goal and you're still looking to achieve something. And for you, it's such a mammoth task to get up sometimes to have that shower and to brush your teeth. That is the equivalent of giving in, I don't know, a 15,000 word dissertation within a day. It's the exact same thing. It's just different.
And I think there's different ways that people tend to deal with it if they get to the point that they find a way to deal with it, which isn't for everyone. I mean, this one specifically worked for me, but for so long, I mean, that wasn't even an option. It was just like your previous question, like the worst times is just not moving out of bed at all. And I feel like recently I'm slightly better than I used to be for that kind of stuff. I've definitely learned how to deal with it better than I used to. But when I think back now, it's ridiculous how often that would sort of consume me, and I wouldn't do anything with the day, and even like, as I say, like even for me now, I've changed my brain with this kind of stuff. Like sometimes I'll have a big list of stuff that I need to do properly, like career wise, like I need to film this sketch, I need to get these 10 emails sent or whatever. And then what ends up happening is sometimes you don't get those bigger things done, and then that used to make me completely think that the day was ruined. That was it. Like I'd humped everything. That was it. And that's why I would probably let it descend right into just not doing anything at all. So now, even if I don't get those bigger things done, if I can still tick off the smaller things, like going for a shower, brushing my teeth, whatever, it does make me feel slightly more that that's still more of an accomplishment for me to the Joe, say, like 4 or 5 years ago.
Does that get harder though with social media now? The fact that you've got a massive presence and you are somewhat a content creator, that everything is about, you've got to film X amount of videos a day. You've got to post at 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. and 5 p.m. and you've got to do 7 days a week and you've got to have 30 reels a week and da 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 da. Do you ever get overwhelmed by that of going, mentally I'm quite not there and I'm just dealing with myself, and yet social media comes and you go, well, hold a minute, I've got this massive audience and I've got this platform that is telling me I've got to tick things off, and sometimes it's just a bit too much to have someone or this space controlling my own mental health?
Massively. I mean, for me, it's been one of the strangest things to kind of get used to now, because obviously there's the ever-changing algorithm thing online, which anyone who creates content can't help but ignore. You're constantly told that if you do not constantly post, you will get somehow punished for it. And I think some people think that there's some mythical thing to that's not the case. But I certainly have experienced that if I even take 2 weeks off from not posting anything, the next time I put videos out, it takes me another 4 or 5 videos till I start seeing those kind of views and that kind of engagement going up again. So obviously there's a huge pressure to feel that you do have to post every day. Obviously the problem being, if I do go through, which I still often do, little down periods or sort of darker periods, you don't want to even film yourself, let alone write anything. And sometimes those ideas don't hit, and I just can't put anything out that I don't think's good. This is my biggest problem, is like I'm such a perfectionist in my head. Whatever that perfection is, it isn't perfect, but in my head, it needs to be a certain way. And sometimes I'll have my agent phoning me up and he'll say, well, why don't you just do this idea? You talked about this. And I'll say, no, it's rubbish. It's absolutely awful. Which is maybe not, if I was in a better mood, I would maybe feel the sort of, I don't know, like the energy to be able to do it still, even if it's not the best idea. I genuinely, for me now, I've spoken to a lot of other creators that feel the same, that it's just, it feels like you're left behind and everything that you've built up won't matter if you don't keep doing it. And it kind of makes the whole thing seem a little bit sort of obsolete, actually, because you have these followers that you think you have, but then, only 10% sometimes of your followers are seeing the content that you're putting out due to algorithms and everything. The algorithm thing is just something I don't even really try and think about now, because you genuinely can lose your mind thinking about it and just trying to work out what you think this Gandalf-like essence of the algorithm, what they kind of want. Do you know what I mean? So for me, yeah, mentally, it's I feel punished straight away if I decide not to put a sketch out. It's like I have to go, oh, you failed again because you didn't keep up with it. You failed because you never did do it. Because I was trying to do one a week was always my thing. And then I missed a couple weeks now and then, and I'd feel bad and I'd put a big post out about it and be like, sorry, everyone. Like, but then this is the other thing. I don't know if the followers are sitting waiting on one every week. I don't know if there is an expectation for me to record that many sketches and put them out. I do take long gaps from it because I just can't keep up with the intensity of constantly put it out, and also the highs and lows of putting the videos out. It's horrible. When your sketch goes viral, I remember the first one I got it went viral. It was such a weird experience. Like, it was actually very anxiety inducing as well to have your phone constantly doing that, and just I had to put my phone on silent because it was just vibrating every second. It was like a drill going off, and I just was. And for some, even though a lot of the comments were positive, you do realize you're going to hit a lot of negative things and people not liking who you are when there's that many people seeing you. And it's quite funny. It took me a long time to kind of get over that and not really sort of let it affect me too much. Do you know what I mean? But it's yeah. To answer your question, yes, it's bad for your mental health.
What would that do to your dopamine here when it went, okay, my phone's buzzing, and then it gets to that point where it starts veering off, and you have that big high, you've got constant, and then you've got a couple, and then you just have nothing.
It's genuinely like a drug addiction is the best way I can describe it. The first time you get that viral hit, it's one of the best feelings you've ever had. It's because sometimes it can last for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It's like I remember phoning my agent up, going, it's still not stopping. He was excited. He was phoning me up and going, oh, you're at this amount of followers. You're at this amount of followers. And it was like every few hours, it was just so exciting. And then it does slow down and you sort of start noticing that it's, everything's lower and you go, oh, that's that done. And then you put another one out and it doesn't do as well. That sort of hit that you had before is not there, which is fine. You go, okay, that's all right. I'm still happy that I got that one. But by about 6 down the line, and you're not hitting that viral again, it's soul destroying because you just go, what am I doing different? It's like, and now I've had that hit. I want that feeling every time I come on my phone, which is a horrible addiction. Now I realize after doing it for so long, you're just not going to hit everyone like that. It's just not going to happen. Like, the one that I even went viral on, I didn't even like it. I put it first when I was putting it out. It wasn't one of my favorite ones I'd done. And then that was the one that went really viral. And even though I didn't feel quite confident about it, I was happy to take the feeling that it gave me that it had went viral, Sometimes if I'm feeling down, I sort of post the sketch out going, please, just please let this go viral. Just so I can feel that validation again.
Well, it's that weird thing of clickbait and the whole clickbait world that you're making content for numbers and it all becomes a number game. And the problem with clickbait content is that it gets to the point sometimes is that it's not very authentic to you because the audience want that, but the moral and the authenticness to yourself going, morally, does that sit right with me? Let's say you're going through a depressive episode to then go, right, I've got to put this clip out about depression and make light of it. And actually, it's not funny at the moment. I know you guys who are watching it are finding it funny, but for me, I'm living and breathing this and it's not funny. How do you make sure that you get desensitized to go, this is content, this is me, I am Joe, and Joe is a human being, and then there's Joe who is the social media content creator, online brand, and that's the business, but this is me. And yes, they're the same thing, but they're also very, very separate.
That's a good question.
I try, mate. I try.
I think so. For me, when I do write anything mental health related, it's always when I'm feeling better. I never see the funny side of it when it's happening to me. I really genuinely don't. And it's not like I get depressed or I'm anxious or whatever and I go, oh, get your notepad. It never it doesn't even compute with me that this could be something worth writing. And I know that you hear that sometimes, when you hear about these tortured artists and go, this is the best time to be creative. I've never felt that. It's the last thing I want to be as creative when I'm feeling like that. I only ever write that from an outside point of view. So in a weird way, I think the only way I'm able to write this kind of stuff. Because this is the thing, I didn't know how accurate it was or anything. You know, when I wrote it, I remember putting out my first mental health one and thinking I was really nervous about doing it, because I also didn't want people to be concerned and to say, are you okay? And things like that, which is, you know, it's not so, I certainly didn't ever want to feel like I was, you know, looking for any attention or anything like that to do with my mental health.
Which is an interesting thing as well, because it's almost like the boy who's crying wolf of, I'm going to keep putting out content about me and keep going anxiety, depression. I'm okay, everyone. I'm okay. But are you really okay?
Someone once commented on one of the sketches highlighting that I was sort of taking the mickey out of something that was a really serious problem for certain people, and that, you know, did I think that was funny to make light of? And that was the only time I really felt like whoever I was online was replaced by actually me commenting back to say, you know, this is me. And I felt like I had to defend that, because I really found it quite unsettling that they would think that I was just, you know, that I don't know how they thought I was coming up with this stuff, but, you know, without going through it myself. But then I did feel like I had to validate that and not be annoyed at the person, but to say, I think I said something along the lines of like, I will never write anything that doesn't relate to me somehow, specifically with mental health. I wouldn't do a sketch about schizophrenia, for example, because I haven't had it. I haven't been through that. So I wouldn't be able to write sketch about that in any way or form that was observational or otherwise. So with the mental health stuff, and also, yeah, because what you were saying there about the idea of like, I keep posting it out, and part of me now does feel like when whoever the characters are, they aren't me specifically, if that makes sense. I don't see that as me saying this is how I feel, even though it's got all the elements to how I have felt. It has meant to be more of a relation thing to other people, because not to be like, oh, a martyr that's like, oh, I'm doing a good thing, but there's so many people did message to say, can you please keep making these, because there's so little content out there that actually I've watched about mental health that genuinely makes me kind of laugh about it and go, this is what I actually am facing. But there's no reason we can't make a little bit of light of it sometimes. I think it does make you feel less alone with that kind of stuff. I certainly find that Robin Williams was a great example of this. You know, when I sort of saw the videos of him talking about his mental health, it meant the world to me, because, you know, in a weird way, like it's a sad thing to see someone that unhappy, but at the same time, he was someone I respected so much growing up, and I was such a fan of him as a kid, and I had every one of his films on video and just loved him. And then at an older age, to hear him talking about going through this stuff made me feel less alone, and sort of, I suppose, more able to still be a comedian, because that was a big thing for me. I think I was a bit slow on the uptake to realize that a lot of comedians do suffer from mental health problems, but obviously in the media and in any industry, it doesn't ever look like that, does it? It really doesn't, especially with someone like Robin Williams as a kid. Like, none of us thought that he was a sad guy or unhappy at any point of his life, you know.
It's interesting what you say about Robin Williams, one of my favorite acts of all time. And if you ever want to picture what my flat looks like, I've got a bedroom door. I've got an on-air sign above the bedroom door, which never gets lit up. We'll come back to that later on. But opposite, the first thing I look at in the morning when I open my bedroom door and I go to the toilet, as you speak about, is this. And it's a sign I've got made into a canvas. And it says, everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind always, Robin Williams.
Very, very true.
And that's the thing. We are all going through this together. And when we look at mental health, we can sometimes feel very much alone. And the way you look at it and the way you laugh through it, I think and I was thinking about this before of, do I commend you for it, or does it make me feel uncomfortable? And then I thought about it, and the way I processed it, my mind was going, well, hold on a minute. When we look at mental health, and I have such paranoia, and I'm sure you will have elements of it as well, not to talk for you, but being in the creative industry where you've got an audience and where cancel culture is such a big thing and where we so care about ourselves that we're putting it onto everyone else. I'm the most paranoid person. And the thing to always come back to, and the thing that we always have to remember is, did anyone die? And what's the worst that can happen? And once you've processed those thoughts each time of going, well, okay, I'm going through this motion at the moment, but what is the worst that can happen? Has anyone died? Have I done anything serious enough to commit an offense, to go to prison? Have I done anything serious enough to upset someone? Or is it all in my mind? And what you do with your videos is very magical, actually. And I think you're very clever. And I don't know if you realize how clever you are, because it's going, well, look, yes, I'm going through this anxiety, whether it's, I don't know, for example, you did one about, which I really liked, about the credit card and going, the Apple Pay doesn't work, slide in
Yeah.
your card doesn't work. And you go, well, it is okay. You know, there are ways around it. If you can't pay for your petrol, hopefully someone will go, look, here's my ID. Here is my passport. I'll be back. Let me just go and get some cash. Or, and people will be trustworthy. But for yourself, you feel so bad and embarrassed. And I think it's sometimes going, look, don't be embarrassed. Look at your videos, for example, and go, well, it is okay. Yeah, this is madness. It is madness that these are the thoughts that go in our mind. But they're silly thoughts, because they're not real. They're not going to do anything to you. And I think that's actually where the cleverness of you comes into it, my friend.
I appreciate you saying all that. That's really kind of you, Johnny. Thank you. I think in a weird way that, like, I don't try to overthink myself what my whole point in doing it is. And if that's what your take on that is, actually really interesting, because it's certainly, when I write them, I genuinely, I wrote the mental health ones in the same way as I write every other sketch, which, like, so the other one of my other bigger ones is when you order a coffee, which is a really simple sketch. It's just about the amount of questions that they ask you when you're ordering a coffee. And most of my sketches follow the same lines, really, which is just, it's a thing that we all recognize, but you just shove it to the absolute maximum and it gets ridiculous. And that's kind of what I did with the mental health ones as well. It was just taking probably what is happening in your brain when like the chip and pin one, like you just said. I wrote it that day when I came out, and it's sometimes there's a really special thing that happens where you actually are able to kind of write the thing after it happens straight away, and you kind of notice it and you go, I should write that down. That was kind of funny, because at that point I had noticed how ridiculous it was, how much I was panicking about it. I wish I could do that every time. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes I'll just not come up with the idea when these things happen. I try to be more aware of it now, and it's, in a weird sense for me, it's healed me a little bit when I know I've got that brain that is this, could this be funny? Could this be relatable to other people? Is there a sketch in this? And that weirdly has made me stop getting in my head so much after it happens, if that makes sense. And it's kind of like, it's interesting for me. It's kind of a bit weirdly, writing the content has actually helped me out a bit. But then the thing is, as well, is I don't know how often to keep releasing these ones as well, because it actually made me realize, like, somebody said that to me. They said, God, you could do hundreds of these. And I was like, you really could, couldn't you? Because that's, how many scenarios do you actually think, if you think about a day in my life anyway? I go, that's probably happened about 8 times today already, just from being outside the house. And do you know what I mean? It's like, and I'm surprised with how relatable that one was. I didn't know if anybody else had been as crazy thinking as that. And then the fact that there's so many people commenting saying, oh God, this just happened to me this morning and stuff. For me, if that may, in a weird way, you know how you were saying about, like, we're talking about, like, it relating to other people and feeling less alone. If I film something and then other people say, oh yeah, this is me, that makes me feel so validated as well, to not feel as silly sometimes with these
Well,
kind of
it's
thoughts.
hard because, you're 32 years old, and just to say you are single,
Yes.
you are going out on tour, which is very individualistic, and there's a lot of loneliness attached to that as well. And it's kind of going, well, where am I and where do I fit into the world now? If I'm in my 30s and I look around it, and I'm 31 and I'm always been single, and you look around and everyone's having kids and everyone's married and getting engaged, and you go on Facebook or Instagram every day and you're like, unfollow, delete, 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 delete. None of you are in my world anymore. And you go, well, who am I in this world? I'm shopping around the UK, trying to find my tribe, trying to find the people that identify with me, trying to go, well, look, I can talk about mental health because we relate together. But then when I come home and I'm just Joe at home, who is that Joe? And where do you fit into that world when the camera is turned off, the phone is turned off, and you are just in your own inner thoughts now?
I think the word that you definitely said there that resonates the most is lonely. It is one of the most, I mean, I can't believe how lonely it is doing comedy. Like, I mean, to other people on the outside, it maybe seems like I'm doing a lot. And there is days where I'm really busy and I'm out with other comedians or friends, especially when I'm traveling around a lot. And it can be really fun, but there's a lot of it is just sitting in trains by yourself and in hotels. And then when you get home, the come down from this stuff can be hellish. It can be really bad. I don't know how your brain can compete with that when you know. And sometimes I find it hard just to be able to say it was fine if I just do nothing for the next 2 days. I can just sit and watch some films. Do you know what I mean? It should be fine. It's like, but then after doing something like that, I find it really hard to.
Can we just give a
really...
bit of context to that? Just
Mm.
for those, because I know this and you know this, but just for the listener or the viewer out there, I think there's something very interesting you picked up upon, and I think we can just expand on it as your final answer. Is the fact that when you go on, let's say, a tour, and we're not talking about the tour that you're going on because we want everyone to buy tickets, blah, 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 blah. But when you go on tour, 80% of the time, you're going to be driving up alone because it's near to where you live, right? So you're in a car alone. You then get to the venue and you go through the stage door. And the stage door is around the back of the building where the audience aren't and the receptionists aren't. You're kind of on your own. You've got a security guy who signs you in. You then go to your dressing room. Your dressing room is sometimes just an empty cupboard with a little shelf and maybe a hanger on it and maybe a little table. And that's it. It's a very, very bare room. You then go on stage and everyone's applaud you and you've got this big high. If you're lucky, you come out the stage door afterwards and people want your autograph. You then get in your car and you've got all this adrenaline. You're going, well, who do I want to tell this to? You know, I want that person that can share that excitement with me, that we can go, oh my God, I can't believe when this happened, that happened. And you're like, no one's there. It's just me back in my car alone. And then you go home and you're right. Then you go on the sofa and you watch your movies and you're like, did that even happen? And yes, I feel validated by it, but it would also be nice if I could share that experience with someone and it becomes an experience rather than just it's a job. And also the only one who really knows about it is me. And actually, is that enough?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You've got it bang on. I mean, that is exactly how it feels. I mean, the cutoff from being on stage, specifically with a good gig, because, you know, you hope that every gig that you do is at least serviceable and everyone laughs and, you know, we all go home happy enough. I think I've had it maybe not many, a handful of times in my whole career when you're just surfing on stage. Like you just can't say a word wrong. Everything you're saying is getting a lot. You just don't know why it's happened, but sometimes the stars align and it's just to come down off that experience when you get off stage, like you say, and then that's been a couple of hundred people laughing like that. And then you go back. And if anything, there's a slight jealousy sometimes because they're probably going out and having fun after it. They're talking about it after, going, that was a laugh and let's go and get more drinks. Let's go meet up with whoever. Whereas I'll just go back and, you know, sometimes you're on with other comedians that might want to go for a pint or get some food after it and you can kind of come down together in a weird sense. But then most of the time, like you say, it's you by yourself again. And you've kind of got to, it gets easier. I mean, when I first started, you know, those kind of gigs you couldn't calm down off them because it was just like extreme validation. Obviously, I'm a professional now. I gig all the time. So it's like, you know, I don't feel like that after every gig anymore, but there is still a feeling of absolute loneliness when you come off. Like you kind of go from being the main event to just you again. And it's kind of not that I've got an ego about that, going, oh, everybody thinks I'm great or anything. It's not why I do it, but
yeah, it's a sense of belonging.
That's the thing, because you're saying stuff that people are relating to, and you go, if you're laughing at this, you'd probably enjoy hanging out with me. You know, I'd probably,
we're best friends now.
I always wonder that. I go, I wonder who in this audience I would actually be really good friends with. You know, because I mean, I always think that.
Well, I'm going to tell you, my friend, I'm going to be your best friend now, and I'm going to come and see you. Life advice that won't change your life is touring around the UK, 23rd of June in Newcastle at the Strand, and the 30th of June at Manchester, Frog and Bucket. That's June done. And then July and August, you're up in Edinburgh with your new show, Lost, which people can check out all over your social media channels. Like I said, Robin Williams, we'll leave it with this quote. Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind always. That's Robin Williams' quote. You've been watching or listening to Skin and Skin with me, Johnny. So if you like what we had, please give a thumbs up, click that subscribe button, leave a review, and let's keep spreading the word. It's okay to not be okay. On TikTok at Johnny Seifert 92, on Instagram at Johnny Seifert at Skin and Skin Podcast, and on X at Johnny Seifert, where you can find me. Joe, where can people find you?
You can find me, just type in Joe McTernan on all social media platforms and you will find me, or visit www.joemcternan.com.
Amazing. And Joe started some really interesting conversations about comedians and the loneliness attached to it. I've had people like Dave Chorner, Jeff Norcott, and Rialina all on Skin and Skirt in the past. Go and check out those episodes as well, because let's start this conversation that we're having and talk about the comedy world and the mental health implications of it, because there's a lot to look at. I'm Johnny Seifert. Thanks so much for watching or listening. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.